Hey, what is up, B fam? Man, I am so excited for this episode that we're going to talk about today because it's a little bit scandalous. Okay, well, maybe not scandalous, but if any of you out there are guilty of social media stalking, specifically maybe your ex or your ex's girlfriend or your other co-parent, stepmom, whomever it is, this episode is for you. Or maybe you've been on the receiving end of that and you have been stalked by the ex or their new significant other, and it has caused some turmoil in your life or frustration. I can raise my hand and say I have been on both sides of that, and not proud to admit, but also a little bit proud of my stalking skills. I will have to admit that here. And so I have two guests on today. They are from the podcast Raising His Kids. And so I have Toni. She's from My Blended Chaos. That's her own social media. And then I have Lauren from Blooming Stepmom. And they have come together and created their podcast, helping other bio moms, stepmoms, people in blended families really survive through this time and thrive during this time of blended family life. And they did an episode a while back on social media stalking, and it really I was in the car having this whole conversation with them without having a conversation with them because I was by myself just listening to them. So I thought I need to have them on, and I want to talk about this topic because we've never talked about this topic on here before. So we will be right back after this, and you'll get to hear a little bit from them.
When we first became a step family, just like you, we didn't quite know what we were getting into.
Scarlett and Randall Tandy here from Enjoying Your Blended Family, and we have been a blended family for over 15 years. And not only did we have to figure out how to handle the day-to-day struggles that come with being in a step family, about 7 years in, our biggest fear happened, and each of our kids went to go live with their other parent.
We went through seasons of zero connection with each one of our kids, and we had to get really creative on ways to reestablish and reconnect those relationships.
And through prayer and becoming very intentional, God restored our family in true God-like fashion and made it better than we could have ever imagined or hoped for.
So God has called us to help other families do the same thing, to make those connections. So if you're looking for stronger relationships, deeper connections, and more communication, then we believe it truly starts with being intentional and creating these fun opportunities in our family.
Click the link so that you can get quick access to the process that we use to help you find common interests in your family so that you can be more intentional on spending time with your kids, your spouse, and your family as a whole.
We believe you can take the step out of step family and create a blended family that you truly enjoy.
You can find our podcast on Enjoying Your Blended Family on YouTube or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And while you're sitting there, go ahead and follow us on social media.
So when you have more fun, you'll see less problems.
All right, ladies. So we are back, and up at the top corner over here, we have Lauren. And so, Lauren, can you share a little bit about your blended family dynamics, how y'all came about, your custody arrangement, and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So I met my husband 7 years ago, and his son is, or so almost 7 years ago, and his son is almost 8. And so we met when he was obviously 1 years old. He doesn't remember life without me at all, which I think could make it easier or harder, right? But so we got married twice because we got married during COVID, and then we had like a real wedding 2 years ago. So we've been married for 3 years. And I just had a bio baby 5 months ago. And our custody is a little all over the place. It's finally getting like really consistent in the last few months, but originally we had Saturday and Sunday, no overnight because he was a baby. And then it went to one overnight, and then after that it was kind of all over the place. So now our schedule is like once we have him every other week. So one of those weeks in a month will be 4 nights and the other one is 5 nights. So it's a little confusing, but it works for us for sure.
And so you got to a point where you kind of like it the way it is, even though it's kind of confusing?
We want more. We went to court and fought for more, and we didn't get it. But we're hoping at some point it'll be 50-50.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But it's okay. It's okay for right now what we have. Yeah, we would just
Yeah.
like more.
And are y'all close in proximity, like where she lives and where y'all live?
We used to be like 10 minutes away, and then like a year or two ago, she moved an hour away. So
Oh.
that made it really hard that my husband has to go, or me, has to go 1 hour in one direction to get him, and then go like an hour and a half in the other direction to get to work. So on days where we have to drop him off or pick him up from school, they're very long days for us and adds like an extra 2 hours to our day
Oh, wow. Okay.
and
Yeah.
his day.
I like to ask that question because we have a lot of people in our blended family community that deal with that. And they get very tired and burned out from the car time. And so I just like to hear different people's perspective and what that looks like from them. And, maybe give tips and stuff. If you ever have some, maybe you can share some with me on making it easier.
I wish I had any on making it easier. We are just like driving through heavy traffic every other week. It is hard. If anyone else has any tips, I would love to hear them because it's not easy.
Audiobooks are my only podcasts and audiobooks are my only.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so true. I don't do the drive at all anymore because I have a 5-month-old and I can't deal with the long drives with her crying in the car. So I don't do
Oh,
them
that is
anymore.
true. Yes,
She
and
cries the whole time she's
congrats.
in a car. Thank you.
Congrats on being a new mom. I know that's exciting as well.
It is, yes.
All right. So, Toni, now you want to share with us a little bit of your family dynamics?
All right. So the chaos. We met 10 years ago, but we were still in our respective marriages at the time when we met. We actually worked together. So that's how we met. And then after I left my son's dad, after my husband left his ex-wife, we ran into each other one weekend at a park where we coincidentally had our boys at the same time. And our relationship kind of just went from there. And the boys are all 2 years apart and they get along like a house on fire. They fight like brothers, but they love each other like brothers, which kind of, I think, sped up our relationship because while I was trying to take things slow, the boys were the ones asking for sleepovers. So it all kind of happened really fast. And then after we'd been together about a year, he wanted me to move in with him. And I was like, no, I'm an independent woman. I'm going to be on my own. And then he was going to buy a house and he goes, well, why don't you just buy a house with me? I was like, okay, you talked me into it. And then from there, we got engaged, we fell pregnant, we got married all in the same year, which shocked everyone because we'd only been together a year. And then all of a sudden we're buying a house together. We're getting engaged, we're falling pregnant, and we're getting married. And we eloped, which annoyed a lot of people as well.
I just saw that. It's like your anniversary or something, right?
It is. It's our 4-year wedding anniversary today.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. So yeah, we've been together for almost 6 years, married for 4. We've got yours, mine, and ours. So we've got Big and Little J, which are my stepsons. We have Big K, which is my bio son, and we have Miss K, who is our daughter.
Okay. And so your sons both have their names start with J.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why you call them Big and Little J. And then your bio daughter both of them are your bio daughters. Their
Son and daughter.
Oh, son and daughter. Okay. And they both start with K.
Yeah, we just don't use their actual names on social media. So that's why. And of course, we had to make things difficult naming them with the same initial.
Yes. Well, because, with our family, we have 2 Rileys. So we have Big Riley and Little Riley. So it's funny when I hear you say that with Big J and Little J. And I'm like, surely their names aren't J, both.
No, but they both start with the same letters. So
Okay. So now just will y'all both give me a little insight on what brought you to the place feeling like, okay, I want to use social media as a platform and podcast as a platform to help other stepmoms, bio moms, people in blended families. Or I think I heard a little bit of your story, and maybe, if it was just like, this is an outlet. Like for me, when I started blogging, it had nothing to do with blended families. It was just my life. And it's because my therapist said, hey, you need to find something that's yours. And so I started to write and blog, and my life is a blended family. So a lot of it had to do with that. So let's start with Toni. You want to tell us like what got you to this point where you use social media to talk to other stepmoms, bio moms?
Yeah. So when Miss K was born, she was born at the beginning of COVID. So she was 6 weeks old, and then we went into lockdown. So I hadn't left the house for 6 weeks after giving birth. And then we've gone into lockdown. And then I just started feeling more and more isolated, and, postpartum kicked in, and I just kept spiraling. And then all of a sudden we got more custody of my stepson. So we used to have them every other weekend, but then because of COVID, bio mum couldn't cope, so kept offloading the boys to us because she couldn't handle the homeschooling. So all of a sudden I'm homeschooling these two boys that we didn't have here all the time, and now they're here all the time. And my doctor's like, you need to find an outlet, because this is, I can give you medication for your depression, but it's not going to fix it. Like, you need to find an outlet. And he goes, why don't you journal? Why don't you blog? Find something. And I went, well, all my issues besides just being a new mum again have to do with blended family life. So why don't I start something on Instagram and see if I can connect with more people? Because searching for blended family stuff on my own personal page, I couldn't find it. But the second I started my page and started using the hashtags, I connected with you, I connected with Lauren, and I connected with so many others. And it dug me out of a hole.
Man, I love that. And I love everybody has these different perspectives as well. And like, we all have these unique stories, what brings us to where our blended family is. And so we all have this different insight, but then we can all learn from each other and know that we're not alone. Cause I think that's the main thing, is we get in this mindset that like we're the only ones that are dealing with this, or we have to keep it secret, or we have to keep it private. And so that is the good thing with social media, is that you can connect with people. And I was the same way. Like, I didn't think there was anything, especially when we first started out there. We didn't even have Facebook when Randall and I got together. And to look for resources, there was nothing out there to help for us to be able to know how to cope. And then now, once we started something up and we started our page and we made it for blended families, and then we started finding all of these other people, and it was like, oh wow, there's like a whole community out here. So Lauren, can you tell us a little bit of what brought you into helping step families?
Yeah, definitely. So I actually started mine before COVID. So I was definitely in the throes of stepmotherhood during COVID, but before I started it, because I was like desperate for anything that could help me like cope, I guess, with being a stepmom. And I was like looking on Pinterest and Instagram. I couldn't find anything. Like, everything was along the lines of how to help your stepkids, how to talk to bio mom, like all these things, but there was nothing about how to like help yourself. And I couldn't, like Toni was saying, I couldn't find relatable content. I don't know how I missed it, because there's so much of it now and it's all great. But when I was looking, I couldn't find it. So I decided that I was gonna start like healing myself and the things. So I had been on like a healing journey a little bit before that, so I knew that the things that were triggering me about being a stepmom were not really about those things. It was about something else. So I started like going through that journey, and I was like, well, I might as well just document this and start my own page and hopefully help other people. So I did that, and then I got a coaching certification, and I started doing stepmom coaching.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know that you were a stepmom coach.
Yeah,
So
I don't really put it out there enough. Like, every time I make a post, I feel like I should have made a stepmom coaching post, but I hardly ever do.
yes. Well, anybody that's listening, if you need a stepmom coach right there, you can hook up with Lauren. And that's also a cool thing too. It's just like finding a therapist or a counselor. Coaching's a little bit different because it doesn't have the same like licensing behind it. But also because of that, it's a little more personal, I think, when you like a lot of people don't understand the coaching world, but you're able to like walk somebody through something and be there for them in a different way than somebody that's sitting in a counselor's office. But you can find someone that fits and meshes with what you need, and just having somebody else say, oh, I don't know, like maybe you shouldn't do that, or maybe maybe try this instead. And it's so beneficial to just be able to bounce those things off of other people. So now
Definitely.
let's get into this episode about the social media stalking. So, like I said earlier, and I went live on my Instagram as well earlier today, just kind of putting it out there about this episode that was coming out. And I will admit, like, I enjoy stalking. I probably shouldn't admit that, but I don't. It's not even just like stalking an ex. It's I enjoy like being a detective. So if one of my kids comes home and they're like, "Hey, I met this boy. His name is such and such," while they're talking to me, like I'm on my phone looking up his name or trying to find his mom or trying to make some sort of connection so I can see who she's talking about. And sometimes they hate it and sometimes they love it because if they have any questions about anything, like if they run into a cute boy at the coffee shop and they're like, man, he was so cute, but I didn't get his name. I will spend hours trying to figure it out by doing my social media stalking skills. So it's not just for the ex, but early on I did use social media as a way of trying to like gather proof and evidence against my ex-husband in case we needed to go to court. I had this huge binder of things that I would print out where I have never actually used any of it. And I don't think a judge would even actually take it if I did try to use any of it because I was really reaching in a lot of the stuff and hoping. So eventually I got blocked on his social media. And when we were going to court, they recommended on both sides, like, y'all need to, don't post anything on your social media, but definitely block the other person during this time because you don't need to add any fuel to this fire when it came to my ex-husband. And we're still like that today. And I'm completely fine. Like he has my mom on his social media and all my sides of the family, but I am not on there. I am on his girlfriend's though, because she reached out and she wanted to connect that way and she sent me private messages. And so her and I do speak on social media. And then I have blocked my stepdaughter's mom because the things that I was posting was making its way back to her and it was hurting her biological mom because the things I would post would hurt her feelings because we were happy, or it would hurt her feelings because I was talking about things that were hard, and then it would end up coming back on my stepdaughter. And so just to save the peace for everybody, we just went ahead and put that guard in there so there's no temptation either way, and I think that has been beneficial for us. So that's a little bit of my background in the stalking. So let me ask you ladies your standpoint on, like, who do you think does more of the stalking? Is it like bio mom, stepmom? Is it women more than men or men more than women?
I
I would
think
say
it's
women more
women.
than men. Yeah.
Y'all both said women?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I would say that falls true too, because like Randall, he doesn't even get on his social media. Like if he posts something, it's like once a year and we all make fun of him because he finally posted something. So I think they maybe just stay off social media in general. You think?
Yeah,
I think so in my experience.
I know my husband did stalk his ex-wife and her new husband at one point, but that's when we were going through court and she was trying to move the boys without telling us where she was moving to. And we were really worried she was going to move further south because then it would make the custody arrangement even more impractical than what it already is, because we're an hour apart. And we were worried that she was going to move even further south and make that distance greater because she was refusing to tell us where she was moving to.
So I would say that would be a lot of my same motive too, is like trying to find information. My ex-husband would do the same. He would move, even though it's like legally you're supposed to tell people when you're moving, but he didn't want me to know where he lived. Like, what do you think I'm gonna do? Like to your
Yeah.
house? I don't know. Like we're supposed to do pick up, drop off, and all of that kind of stuff. So I could definitely see that. And how about you, Lauren? Do you have a past of stalking the ex?
I like have, but I wouldn't say it's ever been a habit. I've kind of looked at her stuff when we were about to go through court, and then I just like didn't because it was not beneficial to me at all. I have more of experience with her stalking me than the other way around.
Okay. So have you had to put up some boundaries on that?
Yeah, well, I blocked her. I post like your husband. I never post on my personal social media pages, but I know Tony's always like, send me pictures of your baby because I never see them on social media. But yeah, so there's nothing to stalk. But I had her blocked on my Facebook from the very beginning almost. But we had an like situation, I guess, where her and her mom, who her mom is very toxic to everybody. So her and her mom had followed me on like all of my pages all at one time. So it was like my business Facebook, my business Instagram. I own my own business, not my blooming stepmom one, and then my personal pages as well. So it was like all at once. So I knew they were talking about me, and then they were, because they both did it at the same time, and then they're requesting me on all of these pages. So at that point, I like deleted their um like friend requests or whatever, and then just blocked all of them too. It would not surprise me at all though if her mom was still finding ways to stalk me because it's kind of who she is as a person. She's trying to get information through my stepson, so I could definitely see it happening.
And do you feel like she's doing it because she wants to catch you doing something wrong, or she just feels like she's not kept in the loop?
I don't know the motivation. My stepson's mom is really like two-faced, I guess. So she acts super nice over like texting and all that. And then like when you're in person or over the phone, she's not really a nice person anymore. So I feel like she was trying to extend an olive branch to like fake olive branch to like get into our home in a way, like so she could get more information from me, thinking that I was gonna like give her information that my husband wasn't or something. Like that's the only thing that I could think of because we don't give her any more information than we need to, really.
Tony, I'll let you go ahead and answer on that. Have you been on the receiving end of the stalking?
Yeah, the receiving end. So, well, I have done a little bit of stalking.
Okay.
But
Thank you for admitting
so,
it.
so let me, I never stalked BioMum. I had her blocked from day dot. And as soon as I found out about her new boyfriend, blocked him too, because it didn't interest me. But when I found out about this new woman who was feeding my 3-year-old snacks that I knew nothing about, and the situation with my son's father and I has been high conflict since we were together. So I was friends with him on Facebook at that point. Like we hadn't deleted each other from Facebook. We were still friends, trying to, be the co-parenting team that, everyone wants to be, but isn't always practical. And so I was stalking stepmom then because I wanted to know who she was. All I knew about her was she was dad's friend and she fed him snacks, always had snacks in her car. And I'm like, okay. And that's all the information I had. My son was 3, so he wasn't communicating very well. So I did stalk her a bit. Then we had a bit where we were trying to be friendly, and her and I were on each other's Facebook, and I congratulated them when they got engaged, when they had their son. And then things kind of turned sour when I started my page, my Blended Chaos. But I had them blocked from the beginning because I've gone, you know what, I'm doing this for me. If I can connect with other blended families, great. But this has nothing to do with my son's father or his new partner. And they don't need to see what I'm talking about because this is me talking about some really emotional, in-depth stuff about the shitty parts of co-parenting, right?
Yeah.
And I knew it would just upset them. But obviously someone had been doing some super sleuthing, stalking, and creating some finsters to stalk me. And they found out about it. And it really just, our co-parenting relationship went to complete shit after that. Sorry, do you swear on your podcast?
It's okay.
And things just got worse. And so they've been blocked, and I've found some finsters, which I believe are her just by our podcast being trolled. When we first started, there was this one troll that was and only attacking what I said. Nothing Lauren said. It was just constantly attacking me. So we blocked that account and haven't heard anything more. And there's one that follows me and they talk every now and then. And I'm like, I think your stepmom. Like, I just don't want to block in case it's not, but I don't overshare with that account. And it wasn't until I was in Fiji on holidays. We had our September school holidays and so for a week we didn't have our boys. So we went to Fiji, my husband and our daughter. And when Big K came home to me, he's like, Mum, did you go to Fiji without me? And I was like, well, yeah, I did. How do you know? And he's like, oh, because stepmom was sitting on the couch showing dad photos of your holiday, and I saw photos of you and Miss K. That's how creepy it is for me, because there's no information there. We're not going through court. Like, why are you stalking me? Are you that obsessed with me?
It's so tricky because, I mean, like I said, I've been on the end where I do it just for fun sometimes, but at the same time, it's also unhealthy for your mental health when you get to the point where you're allowing the other person's life affect what's happening in your life. And if I ever got to that point, and I did, like, I used to stalk my stepdaughter when she moved away to her mom's during those pivotal high school years. And when she first left, it wasn't on bad terms. She was just like, she went for the summer and she's like, she called her dad and she's like, hey, I'm staying here, I'm not coming back. And we had, with counseling and all of that earlier in the year, trying to like get to a point where she'd be healthy enough to go do that. We weren't ready yet. We thought we still had like 6 more months. And so everything was still fine. And so I would obsess over checking her social media and seeing what she was doing, the things she was posting, looking at things in the background. Is there beer bottles? Is there, just anything, trying to make sure that she was in an okay, safe environment, and just have a piece of, I raised her from the time she was 8 up until she's 15. She was with us full time, and now she's gone. And like, we aren't really hearing anything. And then when she came down to visit and we tried to force her to stay, and, a lot of things took place and we ended up releasing her to go back, we ended up getting blocked on everything. But because I am creative and I could find ways around and this and that, but it became obsessive for me, and I had to make the choice. I have got to stop doing this. I need to put up some safeguards so that I'm not looking at their things anymore, because I'm not looking at it with any kind of positive mindset. It's spiraling me into another direction. And then I'm taking it to Randall and, making my own, jumping to conclusions and all of that kind of stuff. It just wasn't, it wasn't healthy. And I did the same thing with my kids when they moved to their dads, just because they're in the teenage years and they're posting a lot of stuff. And so I had to stop doing that as well. I'm like, this is not healthy for my mental health, and there's nothing I'm going to do about it when I see something on social media I don't like. So I might as well quit. So now y'all shared some very like insight on why you think people are stalking. So do y'all can take turns maybe, or on your perspective on why you think people go through the trouble of stalking others?
Okay, so I'll go first. Curiosity basically is, I think, probably the number one reason. And not so much with Biomom, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't guilty about stalking like ex-boyfriends and stuff. And it was sheer curiosity. Like, I just wanted to know what they were doing.
The other top one that I think it is insecurity. And Lauren and I've talked about it on our podcast before, is second wife syndrome. So I feel like, and this is probably a reason why my son's stepmother's stalking me, is because she's still insecure in her role as a stepmom. So she's constantly comparing my relationship with my ex, her relationship with him now, me as a mother, her as a stepmother. And it just kind of spirals when you're not secure in your role.
Yeah, I could see that. Could honestly say, like, I have insecurities definitely, but I don't feel like I ever stalked out of any kind of like second wife syndrome. Like, just because when Randall explained to me like their relationship and them breaking up and all of that, like, and he has told me if we were the last 2 humans left on this earth and it was up to us to repopulate, I would not. I would not. And so I don't have like any like doubt that he still has mixed feelings or anything like that. And I guess I just never thought of it like, oh, what is she getting or like what did he have with her before me? Maybe with my ex, like I would do it out of like, oh, must be nice that y'all could go. Like I could see like the Fiji trip. You know, and I don't know y'all's financial situation or anything, but I know for us, like we didn't get any child support. So if I were to see him doing something big or elaborate or fun like that, I'm like, oh, must be nice that you're able to go do that with her and take the kids to do that, but yet you don't, you know, pay or help out in this kind of way. So I don't know if that would be insecurity or not.
Well, we talk about this too, right? But the funny thing is that I get paid peanuts in child support. So his child support is not funding a trip to Fiji. And my husband pays out 3 times the amount I receive. So he's paying out 5 figures a year in child support for children we have 50-50 custody of. And I'm lucky to get $100 a month for a child I have 86% custody.
Oh, wild. The child support and the court thing is so wild to me, how they justify certain things, especially with the 50-50. It seems like, I don't know, it seems like that would be a draw. Like, okay, nobody has to pay in this situation. You take care of the kids when they're in your house, unless maybe someone's carrying the insurance or something, and then you are helping pay for that.
It works differently in Australia, but I'll have a conversation with you on another time about how it works in Australia.
Okay. So what are some other reasons why y'all think that people are stalking?
Jealousy is, I think, a huge one. And I feel like that could kind of be along the same lines of like insecurity, or like how you guys were talking about the Fiji thing. Like I've been there too. Like we can't afford to take my stepson on a big vacation because we pay so much child support, and she takes him on a birthday vacation every year. So I've been there too. Like, oh, must be nice that you can take him on these trips when we can't afford to take him anywhere.
Another one is what you were saying with Riley. You were stalking Riley. And now that I know more of your story, especially after listening to her album, which is fantastic, by the way.
Oh, yes, I'll have to share with her.
Like, I understand a lot more about her story. And so you weren't coming from a malicious place when you were stalking her. You were just concerned for her well-being.
Yeah, and I battle with that a lot in all the different things. Like when I'm like, am I narcissist? Am I high conflict? Am I alienating? Like there were also a lot of safety issues that were in play. And so, yes, there are some things where I was completely out of line in, but then there's some areas where I was truly fearful for my kids, all 3 of them, in different situations and different things that they were going through. And so I have to remind myself, or sometimes Randall has to remind me that, like, okay, do you remember this is why you were doing this, or this is why you acted that way? I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not. And people, when I say like, well, am I high conflict or am I a narcissist? And they're like, a narcissist would never say, am I a narcissist?
Exactly.
Right, exactly. And the other thing we talk about is the intent behind your actions. Are you being a malicious person? Because if you're doing it from a malicious point of view, then yeah, you're the asshole. You're high conflict. But if it's coming from a good place, you're probably just not executing it right.
And so that's where I guess like it has to come down to the individuals and what you're doing while you're doing it. Like, and be honest with yourself. Like anybody that's listening today, which is why I wanted to do this episode, because anybody that's listening today and you've been guilty of this, and we all just shared our sides of it. We've all been guilty. We've all been on the receiving end and the stalking end and doing that. And what is your purpose behind it? And is it affecting you in a negative way? I mean, there's social media accounts that I just have to stop following because it just affects me mentally in a negative way and makes me walk away, maybe feeling jealous or more insecure. Even like different people, when I see them go on vacations all the time, you know, there was a time in my life where we couldn't go on any vacations. So watching this certain couple all the time traveling, it had nothing to do with me and my family. It was just it made me start comparing my life to their life and then start to be discontent in my life. So it's like, let me just stop following that so that I am not putting myself in that mental state. So some of this is purely for your own benefit, for you to stop doing the stalking if it's affecting you in a way that is not beneficial at all. And then for you guys that maybe have been stalked, hopefully maybe this episode shows a little bit of reasonings why that might be taking place, and maybe just start being like, that's the hard part. It's your social media. And I'm very like, I share it all. I tell it all. Like, I try to be conscious when it comes to my kids' stories, because it's not only my story to share. I'm not the main character in this story. And so I try to get their permission if I'm going to talk about certain things. But then I also feel like I have to tiptoe around certain conversations. But I just want to be able to express and talk and share with the hope that it's going to help somebody else.
Mhm.
But when it's getting out there in the world and it's causing somebody else to leech on and like take a piece of that and then tear it apart and cause all kinds of drama in our family, then that's the part where it's like, is it worth it? And we have to like really ask ourselves. So I was just curious with you guys, because podcast, we can't monitor who's listening to us. So like, we're talking here freely today. We're sharing parts of our story. I don't think any of us sharing it with that malicious intent to attack the other spouse. Or I think my goal would be that the exes never even listen to this. They don't care enough to listen, right? Is that kind of how y'all feel?
Yeah. But we're also probably really aware that my son's stepmother's stalking us, because we believe it was her that was on the Finsta attacking me on our Instagram, talking about the episode. So it's like, we even said in one episode, like, keep listening, keep giving us the downloads if that's what you want. And we talk about it. It's like, this is the negative thing that's happening, but we need to fix it. We need to do better. So how can we get to a better place? You know, I don't wish her ill in any way. I wish I could have a cohesive co-parenting relationship, because it would make my son's life easier, rather than him coming to me going, Mum, I don't want to split my birthday in half anymore. Can I just do it 1 year with you, 1 year with Dad? Because I hate that I don't get to have everyone together. Because his goal ultimately would be that we would all be together. But watching his dad show up and his stepmom and his half brother not show up to a birthday party is like a knife in his heart, because she's never shown up to anything like that. And now that he has a brother on that side, he doesn't get to come, because she practically accused me of trying to steal her child, because I asked them if they wanted to join in on our family photos so that my son could have a photo with all of his siblings.
Oh, wow. So in your heart, if you extended the invite, like, you would be okay with her coming and being a part of y'all's regular interactions?
Yeah, I really want it to be, because I've spoken about it on our podcast and on my page. I grew up in a blended family, so did my husband. And this is probably going to cause some shit if my sister ever listens to this, because my sister hasn't spoken to me in almost 2 years because of a post I made talking about my blended family upbringing. And I mentioned that it caused confusion when my parents didn't explain to me that my siblings were my half siblings, because they were raised as my siblings. And I didn't understand why my auntie would only take my older brother and sister, but not me, for visits. And I wrote a post about it, and she flew off the handle. I spoke to my brother about it, and he's like, so it's the truth, it's what happened. But my sister, I think she's just unhealed. Oops, sorry. And I don't think she was ready to hear it and hear it from someone else's point of view. So, but it was, the whole point I'm making is I grew up where my auntie was involved in our life. She was there for birthdays. And, you know, a few years ago, we did our first family Christmas together, because she lived in another state. So my siblings always did Christmas with us. And then as adults, their mum's just there doing Christmas with us, and it was normal. It wasn't weird. And I really have that hope for my kids that someday we could do that.
Yeah, that's kind of my goal too. And we will fluctuate through it. Like, sometimes we're doing good and we can all sit down and we'll have a meal together, because we live in different states. So when we would meet for Riley's brother to come stay the summer with us, and then we would take him back, we would meet halfway and sit down and eat. And I really would enjoy that if it was possible. And we have had that on my ex's side. They've come over here and we've celebrated parties, and I'm glad that we are at that place. We're not on each other's social media, but we are at a place when it comes to celebrating the kids, and now the grandbaby. We can all come together. We've all hosted baby showers and first birthdays. And, I've had my ex-husband in the back barbecuing for the rest of us. And I have to ask my husband, like, are you cool if he comes and barbecues? He's like, if it means I don't have to cook, then heck yeah. Like, more power to him. Let him do it. So it is nice when you can get to that. And that is the hope. And so if y'all are listening on here, exes, and you're listening to our podcast, here's an olive branch. But the hard part is once you try to connect in that way and then you get crapped on, or you do something that offends and everything, I think that's where it's like, then you have this guard up of letting somebody else in your life. And I know for me, like, I am so much more healed after my kids left and went to go live with their other parents. And then it was like a long 6-year journey of me healing a lot of things from my childhood, kind of like you were saying, Lauren, as well. Like, a lot of the triggers were really from things from the past. And so I'm at a place now, like, pretty much regardless of what they do, it doesn't bother me because I am secure in who I am now, versus before I was so insecure. And so anything that happened, I took it as a personal blow that I was not a good enough mom. I was not a good enough stepmom. I was not a good enough wife or ex-wife or whatever. And so I took it all so personal. So is there any last tip that y'all would like to give? Because we're going to wrap this episode up, that you want to give any listeners when it comes to social media stalking? Lauren, you want to start?
I would just say don't do it. Like, you're not going to gain anything beneficial from it, and you're most likely going to get your feelings hurt. So just block the account and move on would be my biggest advice.
That's my advice too. But if you are doing it for court purposes, don't get emotionally invested. Literally take what you need, document it, and don't invest the emotion into it, because it's going to eat you alive and it's going to make you go a little bit cuckoo.
And
Yeah.
is there I don't know if y'all know the answer to this, because me having gone through court but not actually using, like, the judge cared nothing about the things that I thought were bad. Is there certain things that you can use in social media in the courtroom?
I think it depends on what is subpoenaed by the judge. So like they can, like, if you feel, this is in the US, I have no idea about anywhere else, but if you feel like they're posting something that could be beneficial to your case, then the lawyers can ask, and you can get you can get that built into your case.
And that's like what I was going to say, is basically, if the other parent's posting things which, like you said, you were looking for, Scarlett, you said you were looking, are there beer bottles in the background and things like that? If there's anything that indicates neglect or alcohol abuse or drug abuse that's being posted, that can definitely be used. But if you're literally just posting stuff like what we post, it's not going to be of any interest to a judge, because they're going to be like, oh, look, they're benefiting themselves. They're focusing on blended family life. They're focusing on the kids. They're doing right by the kids. It's not going to be cause for any concern to a judge.
Yeah, and I
they
guess
don't want
if
their
it's
time wasted.
True. If it's written in your court orders, like for us, we had a morality clause. And so that was one thing. It was like, he had someone living there at the house that he shouldn't have living at the house. But in order to even go to court to fight that, was it really worth it, kind of thing? So if you're just sitting there trying to find stuff, and just really grasping at straws, you are wasting your time, and you're wasting your money and the court's time as well, and money. So I thank you so much, ladies, for joining me today and willing to just share part of your story, knowing that sometimes it might get turned around and cause a little bit of a ruckus in your own family, but your heart is so genuine to help other moms out there in what's going on. And then just some real talk about things like social media, and being willing and openly admitting like where our faults are in this as well.
Thank you so much for having us. It was fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again. So, all right, B fam. So you heard it here. Social media stalking. Just don't do it. Don't do it. It's not going to benefit you. Really, only if you think there is a safety issue involved. And I mean, but even to find proof on social media is pretty difficult because a lot of people are wise on that. So in order to keep yourself safe, just go ahead and put those guards up. But if you and your co-parents have a great relationship, and you're able to take those pictures and post them together and all of that kind of stuff, like, we're happy for you guys. And that's incredible. But if that's not you, don't hurt your own mental health and your own marriage and relationship and your relationship with your kids by constantly worrying about what the other household is doing. If you have any questions, if you like listening to these two ladies today and you're like, oh man, yes, I love their chemistry and everything, go listen to them at Raising His Kids. I'll put the link in just down in the captions and stuff and in the show notes. That way you can go follow them on their social medias, because they're just funny and fun to watch the different reels or read the different memes that are posted. So go follow them and then send them a DM if you have some specific questions for them. And until next time, remember to enjoy your blended family. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining us today. We hope this episode has been a blessing and encouraged your family journey.
Make sure you stay connected with us and join our weekly Blended Family newsletter. We send an email out every Friday morning full of support and encouragement.
And when you join, we also want to give you a free gift. So go get yours today. The link is in the show notes below.
Have an amazing day. Remember to enjoy the journey with your blended family, and we'll see you on the next episode.